This is the Steele Report.
This week on the Steele Report, we'll talk about Grow Cedar Valley, your local economic development organization, working hard right now to get key information out to you during this health and economic crisis. And our show begins right now.
Now from KWWL, this is the Steele Report.
And right now, I'd like to welcome to the Steele Report Cary, who is the president and CEO of Grow Cedar Valley here. And we're going to be talking a little bit about the local economic impact of the coronavirus that it's having right now, because obviously, Cary, number one is health concerns.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely number one. But number two, or at least a close second, is the economic impact that this crisis is having, because it's a health crisis and now it's quickly become an economic crisis. So from the standpoint of Grow Cedar Valley, we saw you on one of the press conferences not too long ago. What's your big concern here locally right now?
Sure. Very good point, Ron. So we know that this is a health and safety crisis, number one by far, but very closely behind them, almost neck and neck. It's an economic crisis for many of our small businesses and existing businesses around the Cedar Valley. So this is not a surprise to anyone, and I think the information that we'll discuss today and share is available throughout our organization. Certainly that's what we're out here doing. But people learn and process things and absorb information in different ways. So even if you're hearing something 3 times or 4 times, there may be one of those times that resonates and makes a lot more sense. And so we are here just to make sure that we can get information in front of people, what those resources are, where they need to go, who they need to connect with in order to find some relief of sorts as we get through this.
So let's back up a little bit and talk about Grow Cedar Valley, because you're a regional economic organization that's really here for the local businesses to try to retain the great workforce that we already have, attract new talent, those types of things. So tell people a little bit about Grow Cedar Valley and what you're doing right now.
Sure, thank you. So Grow Cedar Valley is the regional economic and community development organization. So that's the combination of the Chambers of Commerce and the Economic Development Organizations, EDOs. Our mission as far as the metro area is primarily the networking piece of what we do. The business retention and expansion is primarily the county piece of what we do, but by far and above, the 6-county region that we work with is that talent recruitment and retention. And so we have different layers of our strategies that go out to our workforce initiatives, and we are very proud of the team that we have that's working on these. And we very quickly, within the last 3 to 5 years, made that workforce piece a priority, because it's the number one thing we hear from our businesses.
And like we talked about this earlier, Will Frost does your, he concentrates on talent. Steve Furman concentrates on the very important legislative side of that, because a lot of things are going to be happening always in the legislature. What is your big concern right now? I mean, we have a lot of businesses closed still, and probably will be closed for a while. That hurts.
It does. It is. And we, in addition to our small businesses that have been here for a while, we've got some startups that are just getting going too, and a lot of innovation going on that we've really been cultivating with the help of the state to make sure we can be one of those innovative sectors of the state. And so we need to do our best to get in front of them with the help. Resources will be coming from the government, we know that, but I think it'll be far and above the community resources that come together, as we've seen some already, that we really need to accentuate and really layer on top of some of the public sector resources that are coming. I know we've seen social media posts, and I know you have 2 of the folks that are going to their favorite establishments and have carry out, and you know, they can't have restaurant facilities there, but they can certainly continue to make the products and the food and meals that people love and are accustomed to, and those are ways that we can support them. But that needs to be compounded with other things. So again, we need to do those things that can layer on top of other resources. But so for you, to answer your question, our concern is to make sure that we can help however we can, and with whatever resources are out there, to help our businesses get through this, keep their head above water, so that we all know that recovery is coming. It will come differently to different people and possibly at different times. But when recovery gets here, we want to be ready to go to help really get things launched.
Now, you mentioned you serve 6 counties. I noticed earlier this week, in fact, I posted a story on KWWL.com how Main Street Waterloo and Experience Waterloo had made up an actual list of all the businesses downtown, all the 28, there are 28 restaurants just in the heart of like downtown Waterloo that were offering carry out or delivery, or anything like that. So I'm hoping all the local restaurants and establishments that are open will let us know about that so we can get that out there. So that's one thing. But some of the businesses may not make it, and that's a big concern. So these Small Business Administration, I know if you're going to get a regular loan, that can be a pretty difficult thing sometimes. Sometimes now the ease of regulations might help, right?
And I think you just touched on a couple things. So SBA, Small Business Association, is a federal agency. We work with Jane Armstrong, who is the state director for SBA, closely. And the lessening of restrictions is going to be helpful for them. And so as you identified, it's sometimes a cumbersome process. It's become less cumbersome, and just today we learned of 2 areas that are going to be relaxed for SBA applicants. Number 1, you will no longer need your tax return for an application. You don't need to attach that for an application. And number 2, they're not, I think this is very important for folks because this is a risky environment, you're no longer required to put your personal assets as collateral on the application. So those are just like within the last, we've just been informed within the last 4 or 5 hours.
That's huge, not having to use your personal collateral, I mean, personal belongings and things. Iowa Small Business Relief Program that the governor announced earlier this week. How do you think that will trickle down here in the Cedar Valley and help people here?
Well, one of the things that we know that Small Business Assistance Relief Program from the state identified their resources to go to businesses considered small businesses between 2 and 25 employees. We've since learned, because we have several sole proprietorships and small businesses that are employee-owned, owner-owned, without other employees. And so there is some language in there. I think there is some, I know there is some fluctuation in there, so folks that are sole proprietors can get in line and fill out those applications too. And I just want to reiterate that a lot of those areas of concern, a lot of those issues that we've discussed and that other people may come up down the road, a lot of that can be identified in looking at the website, the state website, that is iowabusinessrecovery.com. I know you've shared that before, but again, people hear things at different times and there are different contexts of information that it'll stick with them and resonate even more. So iowabusinessrecovery.com, and that is the state association or the state website that handles the IEDA, Iowa Economic Development Authority. Debbie Durham leads, as well as she leads the Iowa Finance Authority. So those 2 agencies and anything else coming out of the governor's office, you can find specific information on that website.
And we've had a lot of several emails about John Deere remaining open, and as I understand it, John Deere is an essential employer because of infrastructure. So that, and that's, I understand what you've known, right?
And that's really important to clarify, because we've had that question too. So why are some organizations or manufacturers specifically having employees continue to work while others are having them work remotely if they can, and not all can? So with Deere, many of their office, so to speak, folks that aren't on the factory floor are working remotely. And those that do need to be part of that, as you call the essential infrastructure, Deere was identified as one of those because they support agriculture. And so not only Deere, but other manufacturers that support the agriculture industry are considered the essential infrastructure organizations and manufacturers that do need to remain viable.
Yeah, with the ag sector here for John Deere, and then in Dubuque, of course, the forestry and construction division over there, which is a huge part of our viewing area. When people call you, kind of give us an example without naming any names. What kind of concerns, what are they saying to you?
Well, unfortunately, we're still on the front end of this for the most part. This may go on a little longer than it's comfortable for anyone. So what we're hearing now are, when are those resources that we've been hearing rumblings, rumors about going to be available, and how do we access them, and do we meet the criteria? So I mentioned to our team Monday morning at our huddle, we are all hands on deck with understanding what those resources, those different resources from the federal and state and local government include. We need to understand those, every single page of those, every single piece of criteria, so that as we get those calls, we know which ones we can help connect people with.
So that's amazing because you've got a lot of people making phone calls. And I noticed at the press conference a few days ago, you announced, though, a great start, $200,000 coming from local organizations that help people.
And that actually, I do not take credit for that at all. That was a great announcement that came out of the Metro Funders Group. I just happened to be getting out of my car when Kay England said, hey, if you're going to share any information, please feel free to share this because we're so excited about it. And we've worked really hard this week to put these dollars together. So I want to compliment all of these foundations and philanthropic organizations because they're the ones that have come together to help fill the gap for our nonprofits.
Yeah, I think I saw a photograph actually on the Northeast Iowa Food Bank of a $50,000 check from a community foundation in Northeast Iowa, so recent days. So people are stepping up to do their best. What advice do you have for, let's say, a local downtown business that's closed right now and they want information? Can they contact you? And
Absolutely.
Then
I mean, I just wanted to share a few things that you would find on our website. You can call us directly. You can trip us on the street and say, I need to have you hear what I have to say. Whatever means, although we shouldn't be walking on the street that close enough that someone could trip us. So if you can trip us from 6 feet apart. But no, on our website, we have, in addition to what I've already mentioned on the Iowa Business Recovery information, that's all on our website also. In addition, all of the SBA information. We've got both the updates from Governor Reynolds, Director Durham, and Deb Townsend from Iowa Workforce. We also have, though, that you can scroll down on our resource page, and there are steps on insurance guidelines, that unemployment insurance guidelines that employees need to know, and employers. Because for some employers, it might behoove them, as well as their employees, to help them access some of those unemployment dollars right now, knowing full well that things will pick up and there'll be a recovery that they can rebuild.
One thing you mentioned before we started our interview, you wanted to talk a little bit about some of the unintended consequences of working remotely. What did you mean by that then?
Well, you know, I've been working with a great mind. He's been kind of a good friend and executive coach for me, Steve Hopkins, out of Michigan, and he said, you know, Cary, this is really like a crisis within a crisis. So the crisis itself is this unfortunate, horrible coronavirus, COVID-19. But the crisis within the crisis are how that's impacting, obviously, our businesses, our economy, but our employees, and our relationships. Because we're all about a community that we're all about events and networking and getting together and sharing good news and coming together when unfortunate things that we need to get fixed. So now we're working, many of us are working remotely, my team included, and it wasn't welcomed by everybody in our team, but we're now working on looking at different platforms. We just today started using Outlook, the Outlook group, the group, Teams group, Outlook Teams, that's working pretty well. We've been Zoomed, we've done GoToMeeting, we've done all kinds. We're trying to find the best one that works for all of our resources in our many different places that we're working from. But I would say that, I said this to one of my team members this morning, you'd think that since I'm working from home, I'd have all this time to get these articles written and all this stuff. But I've been on webinars, I've been on conference calls, and if I typed faster, maybe I could communicate faster, but it's not, I'm a verbal communicator, obviously. And so these aren't necessarily more efficient for people like me to work remotely. I just as soon hop up and go to Aubrey's desk and say, did you think about this? We should probably push this post out. And so it's adding a lot more layers of communicating. But I would tell you the most important thing we need to recognize as employers and team leaders and team members is this is a time when you don't see body language like you used to. You can't read people's faces as much as you could kind of read what they were saying or what's on their mind. So sharing some grace and trusting the people you're working with and those within your industry that you're all pointed in the right direction and the same direction, and you just may do it differently, and that's got to be okay. It's going to be okay that people have to approach their job descriptions in a different way, as long as we have a goal and we determine how we're going to implement our work together to meet that goal. It's going to look different. And so, as you mentioned, we talked about it last week at the county briefing. But keeping in touch with your teammates is important, especially as a leader. Communicating at least daily, even if it's just a quick, how are you doing, or how is this project coming, or where are you on this project? Because there's still accountability that needs to be provided as you work remotely. and expected. So I think the danger of not having those continuous either platforms or ways to communicate on a regular, if not daily basis, is the isolation that your team members will feel. And we know that's happening with people across the board for a lot of reasons. And we look at our senior communities that are not able to have their family in as they're expecting, but those organizations have had great success at bringing virtual conversations and having certainly their employees that are internal are spending a lot more time interfacing with the folks that might have a time of isolation that is not expected. So, you know, there's no magic bullet here. I would just say that this is an outcome of working remotely, but we have to. But what's interesting is that I wonder if when we get through the recovery and we're on the other side of that, if some of this virtual and remote communicating and executing might not become, as it should, becoming more comfortable as we go through this, it might, and maybe it'll stick, and maybe these will become some of the new trends in how we do business and how we communicate with our stakeholders and our customers. So I think there are going to be opportunities once we get through this crisis.
All right, thanks, Cary. We're going to take a break here, as we always do here on the Steele Report. All of our shows are online on KWWL.com. We're coming right back. They talk about self-isolation. It is isolation, too, for a lot of people. And the mental health aspect of that is something that we've talked about on the air, and I assume you've even talked about it in your organization, because it does have a tremendous impact on people.
Very much. I'm so glad you brought that up, because in addition to the financial resources we've listed on our website, we also have mental health resources listed there for a variety of places people can go. It could be as easy as a webinar to look at or watch from home. It could be a phone call. It could be all kinds of different kinds of conversations that you can have. But one of the things that you may see if you get on our website or if you're on our social media page, while we know this is a really, really serious time for people, we also know it's a very human time, and we want the folks who are our stakeholders in our community to know that while we're taking it very seriously, we're also human, and we've got to have a bit of levity here where everybody's going to go crazy. So you may see pictures of our furry friends with us as we work from our remote places. But along with that, you may see a tip from each of our team members about what it is they do during their day while they're working remotely that helps them kind of navigate and balance things. And so it's, I think everybody has a different mechanism. For me, I have to get up and go for a walk, keeping my distance from all of my neighbors. But for others, it's getting on the phone and talking to friends or family and making sure you just are away from both work and the crisis for a few moments so that you can kind of balance everything. But this is a consuming time.
It really is.
And it will be for a while. And we just need to know that we will recover, and we will be alongside our businesses as we get through that recovery.
You know, you mentioned the businesses. A lot of people might want to know how many businesses are actually part of what used to be the Chamber and Alliance, which is now Grow Cedar Valley. So tell a little bit about how many local businesses in the 6 counties you serve.
Thanks. Well, of our investors that help us do what we do financially, I mean, they help with their financial investment, we have about 800. Wow. But I will tell you that our goal, and actually our commitment, is that we work with all businesses, because if they need our help, we are there to help them. And that's what our municipalities expect of us. And we are there, we have to exist, we have to survive, we have to have folks that recognize our value and help us by investing. But regardless, we are there to help whatever business needs help.
So if somebody goes to your website, all of this information that the governor has been releasing out on all these briefings every day, all that information is available right at your website too, right?
And if you go to growcedarvalley.com, there's a banner right across the top of our homepage, and it says COVID-19 resources here, and click on that. It'll take you to, and so how we've formatted it, everything at the top of that page that's kind of highlighted in red or bullets, that's new information that's come in maybe in the last couple days. Okay. And then everything underneath it is ongoing information, static information that we just know is really important for people to be aware of. But many of those, like the SBA update today, many of those resources change. And as you know, Lisa in our office says, this is a very fluid time.
Lisa Skubal, you're talking about, yeah, one of your long-time loyal employees. Yeah.
Well, exactly. I mean, she's been in this industry for over 20 years, and I don't know that she or any of us have ever seen anything like this, but we are there to make sure that we can provide whatever resources that are available, or connecting people within their industry about other best practices. So it may not be, hopefully there are some public dollars that can help our businesses, but there may be some industry dollars, or not dollars, but resources that could really help our folks, like I said, keep their head above water so we can get through this.
One of the things I know that I'm really concerned about, and I know a lot of people are, because for the first time in their lives, some people are going to be filing for unemployment.
Right.
And so let's say I say, oh, I don't know how to do that. They could come to your website, give you a call, and you could send them in the right direction.
Yeah, right? I mentioned that earlier, but just so you know, there is a link on our website for unemployment insurance guidelines.
And we'll show that right now, as a matter of fact.
Okay. And on the growcedarvalley.com, employer unemployment insurance guidelines, and then there are also resources for employees. So it goes both ways. And I would tell you too that the Iowa Workforce, Iowa Works website also, IWF, is amazing at the resources. And so, you know, one of the things, if you've been around me, and you have a lot lately, because we've had a lot, our paths have crossed quite a bit. Grow Cedar Valley we recognize that we don't own all this. We didn't create all these resources, but our responsibility is to make sure that we can package it and get it out and get in front of the people that need to know what's going on. So we partner with Iowa Works office here locally. We attend the seminars and the webinars that Deb Townsend provides at the state level. We are in constant contact with IEDA for a variety of reasons, and their resources are huge. So our ability to be valuable here is to make sure that we can look through all those resources, see which of those are good connections for the businesses we have, whether it's during this crisis or before, or it will be after the recovery too. It's our role to make sure that we make those connections so people can grow. Hence Grow Cedar Valley.
Okay, we're going to take one more break real quickly here and wrap things up here with Cary Dara of Grow Cedar Valley. She's the president and CEO. Remember, online on KWWL.com. We'll be right back here in just a moment. And welcome back to our final segment here on this week's edition of the Steele Report, talking about the economic impact locally of coronavirus on our local businesses with Cary Dara, who is the president and CEO of Grow Cedar Valley. And your website, I'm just amazed, has a tremendous amount of information. We've been showing that throughout the segments here today, but that's valuable information that anyone, like you say, you don't have to be a member of Grow Cedar Valley.
Nope.
You're still there to help them, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I need to give a shout out. You acknowledged to a couple of our team members. I mean, everybody in our team, like I said, it's all hands on deck, but Erin Jarnigan and Aubrey Taylor, excuse me, she used to be Aubrey Taylor, she's now married Aubrey Green. Erin and Aubrey have been lights out, making sure that the information that we get not only is put on our website, but we have to cross-reference that to make sure we've not already put it up in a different context, or it's old information. We have to make sure that it's updated, current, relevant and accurate information, and those two have just been tirelessly making sure that we're going through all of our resources and making sure they're out in front of people.
So the governor's announcement earlier about $5,000 loans up to $25,000, and she made it very clear this is a stopgap measure, trying to keep the doors open for some places for the next 30 days until some of this money comes in from the feds.
Right, exactly, and that's for businesses. So I had the question, is this from nonprofits? And I believe it's just for businesses that file W-9 forms with their taxes. But there, as we mentioned earlier, there are other accommodations, there are other efforts going on to help do the same, you know, stop the bleed, bridge the gap for our nonprofit organizations. But for our businesses, you know, for some of those small businesses, $5,000 will go a long, long way. For others, they really need that $25,000 in order to kind of get through the next few months until some of these federal dollars can, as you said, trickle down. And those federal dollars will be for small business, obviously, but it'll also be for education, be for our hospitals. It's going to be for, I think they call it domestic priorities, which is transportation, childcare, seniors, volunteers, or excuse me, veterans. So there are a lot of areas that these federal dollars will trickle down into. But for our small businesses, what the governor has proposed and has already pushed out The deadline, by the way, is March 31st to get that application in.
So this airs Sunday, so it's Tuesday.
Right.
You have to have your application in by March 31st.
So get on our website, take a look at the criteria needed. The application forms are on there, listed in that businessrecovery.com. So there's all kinds of resources that you can find that we can help you with.
Just the relaxation of some of these rules and regulations should benefit a lot of businesses, hopefully. Maybe it's not going to be enough, we understand that, but it's a start. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Cary, thanks very much. Cary Darrow is President and CEO of Grow Cedar Valley. Contact her information, her office, I should say. They have so much information available on their website to help local businesses here, their investors, as you call them, your local investors. So that's it for this week's edition on the Steele Report. Thanks for watching. We're always online on KWWL.com. We'll see you back here again next week. Thanks.